Shabbat HaMalka. Hachama mirosh, ha'ilonot nistalka, bo'u v'netze likrat Shabbat HaMalka. Hine hi yoredet hakdosha brucha, heima malachim, tzva shalom u'menucha. Bo'i HaMalka, bo'i kala, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaShalom. Bo'i HaMalka, bo'i kala, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaShalom. Shalom, Malachei HaShalom. Malachei Elyon, Malachei HaShalom. Hachama mirosh, ha'ilonot nistalka, bo'u v'netze likrat Shabbat HaMalka. Hine hi yoredet hakdosha brucha, ve'ima malachim, tzva shalom u'menucha. Bo'i HaMalka, bo'i kala, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaShalom. 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 Shalom, Malachei HaShalom. Malachei Elyon, Malachei HaShalom.
Good evening, Shabbat Shalom. So that was Shabbat HaMalka. So if you look at the last couple of lines, Bo'i HaMalka, Bo'i HaKala. So it's a little bit of a riff on Shalom Aleichem. I don't know when it was originally written or anything more about it. But I know we used to do it only in English. Some of you might remember the sun on the rooftops. Bring in treetops. Okay. So we're going to skip ahead and go right into Shir Chadash on page 13. And when our bat mitzvah comes in, we'll have her light Shabbat candles. And page 13, Shir Chadash.
Shiru Adonai, kol haaretz. Shiru Adonai, shir chadash. Shiru Adonai, kol haaretz. Shiru Adonai, shir
was from Psalm 96, and we continue with Adonai Oz on page 19. And that one's from Psalm 29, the last couple of lines.
Adonai oz le'amo yitin, Adonai yivarech et amo. Adonai oz le'amo yitin, Adonai yivarech et amo. Shalom. Shalom, Adonai oz le'amo yitin, Adonai yivarech et amo. Adonai oz le'amo yitin, Adonai yivarech et amo. Shalom.
Can I teach something that it requires you? All right, so we're going to just stall just a little bit longer. Molly and her family are coming in from West Virginia, so we want to make sure that they have as much chance as they can to get here. So we're going to stall one more minute or a few more minutes, and I'm going to read you something that I was planning to read. I need you for this, though, Molly. I'm going to need you for this. So we're going to look at Rodef Shalom at the end of the Kaddish. So on page 294, at the end of Kaddish, it's also well, actually no. Let's do the one at the end of the Amidah. So that would be on page 142. On 142. So this comes at the end of the Tefillah. And we end the tefillah like with a parallel to how we began it. We begin with, God, open up my lips that my mouth may begin to pray. Adonai sefatai tiftach. So we begin with this intention, open my mouth, God, so that I can pray. And then we end with, on page 142, Yehi l'ratzon, may the words of my mouth be acceptable to you. So all in between that, the things that I prayed for my mouth to be open and my heart to be opened, please God, accept that as a sincere prayer. And then we have Rodef Shalom. And so there's a teaching, there's a tradition that goes along with the end of the Tefillah Rodef Shalom, which is to take 3 steps back. You may have seen people do that, taking 3 steps back before they do Rodef Shalom. Have you ever seen that? Not here, but so much in the Kaddish. So if you ever see anyone do that, taking 3 steps back, there's a good chance they don't know why they're doing it, but it's a custom to do it. And Rabbi Michael Strassfeld, who is one of my teachers, he sent some thoughts about this, and I'd just like to share them with you. It's part of what I was going to talk later about in my Devar Torah, so now you get a little bit of a preview, and we'll see how it fits with that. So he says, at the end of the tefillah, we say this prayer, you who make peace in the high heavens, help make peace between all people. The idea is that since there's not, like the stars aren't fighting against each other and the moon and the sun aren't fighting against each other and things are in harmony, that if that can be so in the heavens, then can we have peace here on earth? That's that idea. And so he says, the custom is to take 3 steps back as you recite this prayer. And he cites Shlomo Fox, who taught, if we want to make peace, we must step back, because the only way to create peace is through an act of withdrawal, tzimtzum, like taking ourselves out of the situation. It's called tzimtzum, like a little bit of shrinking back of ourselves. For when we leave space for people to be themselves, then acceptance and peace have room to grow. So if we can take ourselves out and not be involved and enraged or whatever we are in the middle of something, then we leave some room and some space for peace. And so maybe today, for the rest of the service, we can just take a step back and sort of think about how all these prayers might be able to, we might be able to think about them, make them part of who we are, by just taking a little bit of step back and taking ourselves out of it and just seeing what we can get from it. So that's Rodef Shalom. So maybe we'll sing Rodef Shalom, and if you're still not here, I think we'll just go ahead and light candles and keep going. So page 142.
Just gonna pick one. Shalom bimroma, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru, amen. Rodef Shalom bimroma, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru, amen.
I was using the wrong outline for Adonai O's. I was on the wrong outline. Oh, no, I'm not. All right, so we're going to, oh, I thought they were here. 2 minutes? They're coming in. So how about if we do the greeting part now? Please, how about, let's greet one another, wish one another Shabbat Shalom, and then we'll light candles. After you have a chance to say hello to one another, get up, take a step around and meet someone.
Okay.
L'chadodi, and then we'll just go right from L'chadodi. Turn back in our program to page 2. This is Molly. It's her bat mitzvah tomorrow morning. Her mother Jocelyn. They'll be lighting Shabbat candles, and then we'll continue with L'chadodi.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lechad likner shel Shabbat. Amen.
Shabbat Shalom, welcome. Take a breath, relax. And we'll welcome, now that we've lit the candles, and we will welcome the Shabbat presents with Lecha Dodi on page 20. We get to that last paragraph 9, we'll rise to greet the Shabbat presents.
Ay, 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 lecha dodi. Ay, 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 likrat kala. Ay, 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 penei Shabbat. Ay, 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 nekabela. Ay, 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 lecha dodi. Ay, 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 likrat kala. Ay, 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 penei Shabbat. Ay, 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 nekabela. Shamor וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, שימור תפארת ולצילה. איי 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 לך דודי, איי 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 לקראת חלה, איי 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 פני שבת, איי 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 נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה, בראש מכתם נסוכה, סוף מעשה ומחשבה תחילה. איי 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 לך דודי, איי 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 לקראת חלה, איי 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 פני שבת, איי 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 נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, 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 שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. איי 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 לך דודי, איי 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 נקבלה, איי 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 פני שבת, איי 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 נקבלה. בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. איי 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 לך דודי, איי 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 לקראת כלה, איי 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 פני שבת, איי 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 נקבלה. איי 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 לך דודי, איי 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 לקראת כלה, איי 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 פני שבת, איי 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 נקבלה.
Continue now with Barchus. Please remain standing as you're able, and we turn to page 28.
Ay, la, la, ya, la, 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 ya, la, 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 la. Ya, la, la, ya, la, 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 ya, la, 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 la. Ya, la, 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 la. Ya, la, 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 la,
Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, v'chokhmah poteach she'arim, v'bitvuna meshana itim, v'bachalif et hazmanim, v'misader et hakochavim, v'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono, borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or, u'ma'avir yom u'mevi layla, u'mavdil ben yom u'ben layla, Adonai tzvaot shemo. Achai v'kayam tamid imoch aleinu le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai ha'ma'ariv aravim.
Avat olam Beit Yisrael Amcha v'tzam Torah u'mitzvot Chukim u'mishpatim Otanu limadeta Al ken Adonai Eloheinu B'shochbenu בחוקיך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך, ובמצוותיך, לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. שמו ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד.
You may be seated. Continue on page 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם, אמת.
On page 39. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness. Together, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Continue with Micha Mocha.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש. וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל. השכיבנו אדוני, אלוהינו לשלום, והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים. השכיבנו אדוני, אלוהינו לשלום, והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים. השכיבנו אדוני, אלוהינו לשלום, העמידנו שומרנו לחיים. ושמור צאתנו ובואנו לחיים ולשלום, מעתה ועד עולם. השכיבנו אדוני, אלוהינו לשלום, העמידנו שומרנו לחיים. השכיבנו אדוני, אלוהינו לשלום, העמידנו שומרנו לחיים. השכיבנו אדוני, אלוהינו לשלום, העמידנו שומרנו לחיים. העמידנו שומרנו לחיים.
Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom, aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael, v'al Yerushalayim. We turn the page to page 44 of Shamru, and we sing about our covenant with God, with Shabbat, as one of the signs of our covenant, a special relationship we have that we celebrate on Shabbat.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ויום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
We turn now to Tefillah, begins on page 46 with the opening meditation, Adonai Sefatai Tiftach. We continue on the even pages. Please rise as you are able.
Adonai Sefatai Tiftach, Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומר חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואמהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה הכל אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח מוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיה הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו, משני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומיתו מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, למען אתה להחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני, לחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך הסלע, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
You may be seated and continue soundly prayer through page 60. Continue now with Misha Barach for healing on page 153. No, it's going to be a different.
It's going to be at the top of page 253.
253?
Yeah. The top of page 253.
Okay, the top of page 253. Prayer for healing. It's a new version. I believe some of you heard it last week. Opportunity for us to think of those members of our family, our friends, who are in need of healing, healing of body, healing of spirit. Have a list here to read, and when I finished with the list, please add other names, people that you're thinking of, and then we'll also remember that there are people throughout the world whose names we don't know who are in need of healing on the Shabbat as well. So tonight we hold in our hearts for healing Ira Altshuler, Noam Ben Aviv, Gloria Codwalder, Frank Carl, Lou Salenzi, Alice Elias, Ann Fay, Rose Ferraro, Jim Goldman, David Mordechai HaKohen, Naum Kaplan, Natalie Klein, Lee Kramer, Hinda Sarah Bat Chana Pearl, Marlene Marcus, Eitan Shir Ben Mordechai Valea, Edward Mims, Jim Newman, Joanne Newman, Till Oster, Lev Podorovsky, Adam Schusterman, Jackie Student, and Rabbi Stephen Folberg, and the members of Congregation Beth Israel of Austin, Texas, whose synagogue building was set on fire by arsonists. And no one was hurt, but it's an act of hatred, yeah. Other names for Misha Berach? Hold them in our hearts as we sing Misha Berach.
Misha Berach, Avotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak, veYaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel ולאה, ויברך וירפא את החולים. מי שברך אבותינו, אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, שרה, רבקה, רחל ולאה, ויברך וירפא את החולים. אל נא רפנה לנו, אל נא רפנה, אל נא רפנה. מי שברך אבותינו, אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, שרה, רבקה, רחל ולאה, ויברך וירפא את החולים.
I'm going to try to do two things. One is a little bit of what I had written, and then I was thinking about another way I wanted to go. So we'll see what happens. This week is Toldot, the Torah portion in which we meet Esau and Jacob for the first time. We meet them when they are within Rebekah, their mother's womb. And the text tells us that they were kicking and fighting, and it was so miserable for her that she basically said, like, what am I living for? And then the twins are born, and they're described, Esau is described as red like a hairy mantle, and Jacob is smooth. And Esau then later becomes a hunter, and Jacob is a tent dweller, shepherd. And I just wanted to put out there that when you just hear those things, they're neutral. They should be neutral in terms of value, right? There's no value, higher value of having red hair and hairy hair and being smooth, right? I mean, there's nothing inherently better or worse. We may have attributed some things that we like better. One culture likes something better than another, but there's no value difference. And as Molly's going to talk about tomorrow in her bat mitzvah, the text of the Torah has Esau as a pretty sympathetic character, pretty sympathetic for his cause, and Jacob seems like the aggressive, manipulative one. But later in the rabbinic commentaries, it's Esau that they're very hard on. There's a lot of negative conversation, a lot of negative teachings about Esau, calling him like a foolish, not very smart person, later on an idolater, a villain. In this week's Torah portion, Esau trades his birthright, the benefits, the perks that go along with being a firstborn. He trades them for a soup because he's so hungry. He says, I'm going to die. Well, he's not going to die, and the rabbi is, really hard on him. How could he spurn such an important thing for just soup? And, well, the truth is he may not have, the truth is, I don't know. Another way of looking at it is he was hungry at that moment, and as a lot of people are, he may not have been that good at delayed gratification, right? Of thinking about that there won't be a reward in the future, and he wanted the soup then. But the rabbis are very hard on him about that. They talk about him being a wild and dangerous hunter, comparing him to the civilized Jacob who stays close to home and is a shepherd. And again, finally, in the end, he's an idolater because he marries 2 pagan Hittite women and becomes, in the Torah it says, a source of bitterness to Isaac and Rebekah. But he's not a demon, he's not a villain, he's a source of disappointment. It's interesting that the critique of Jacob and Esau begins with it before they're born. And there's a midrash that I like to teach where it says that fighting was that, it's a highly anachronistic midrash, when Rebekah would pass a place where they're studying Torah, which didn't exist, but if she would pass a place they were studying Torah, then Jacob would kick to get out, like, let me get out and study Torah. And if she would pass a place where idols were being worshipped, then Esau would kick, like, let me get out to worship idols. So he didn't stand a chance, even before he was born. Later in Jewish history, the Talmudic rabbis use the meaning of Esau's name, he's an Edom, he's Edom, like he's red, and the Edomites are those who come after him, his descendants, and they basically are like a code word in the rabbinic literature for bloodthirsty enemies of Israel. It's a code word for Rome, it's a code word for the Catholic Church for many centuries. So Esau, although he's pretty neutral, maybe a tiny bit, he's an idolater, but he's not a villain, not a terrible man. That is all translated later in the rabbinic literature to being a villain, to being our enemy, to being this horrible person. I like to suggest that we pull back, as in that teaching from Michael Strassfeld, we pull back a little bit and take a look at what Esau could have been. And this is where I want to depart a little bit. Esau, I've read a critique or a commentary this week about Esau being maybe having some kind of neurodiversity. Maybe he had ADHD. Maybe he couldn't, he was so hungry at that moment, he really thought that he needed to eat. I have a lot of experience with ADHD. My son, Asher, has a pretty severe ADHD. So this idea of impulse control, that he doesn't think he can wait, that makes sense to me as a mother of a person with ADHD. So maybe that was Esau. And maybe rather than demonize him, maybe we ought to understand him in a different kind of way. And my experience in the Jewish world has been that, when I was growing up, I was expected to go to college, I was expected to get a nice professional job, and I could be like Jacob, right? I could be like what was expected of me. But there's other ways to be in the world, right? There's other ways to be in the world. And it's not better or worse, it's a different way of being. And we need people who are going to be working with their hands, we need people who are going to be creative, and we need people who want to be outside, because all of us, as we've learned through the pandemic, depend on all those people that are doing all those kinds of jobs. And it's another way of being in the world. Artists and thinkers and makers and people who know how to fix things. We need them. It's not better than going to college isn't better. This is different. And I'd like to understand Esau as being maybe the role model or maybe the father of that kind of being in the world. Or it doesn't have to be better, it doesn't have to be worse, it just can be different. I'm actually thinking a lot about this because this week I gave the book review of Sisterhood, book review, the Solomon B. Freehoff series on the book Caste. Anyone raise your hand if you've read Caste? It's by Isabel Wilkerson. You need to read this book. It's a life-changing book. It's by Isabel Wilkerson, and she talks about the caste system in this country, and that we have in this country made it started before even we were a country, where this caste system that's fixed and rigid, and we don't have any other ways of looking at the world except through, it's supposed to look like this, it's supposed to be like this. And so I'm not going to go into that right now, but I would just like to invite us and encourage us to think about different as just no value attached. It's like there's no difference. There's nothing better about being tall or short. There's nothing better about having brown hair or red hair, right? It's just another way of being. And so I'd like for us to think about those, just noticing differences. Differences are fine. Differences are what make the world interesting, but not attaching value to them and not judging and not putting people into categories or boxes because of what we might think that they are. So that's my message for tonight, Shabbat Shalom. And please read Caste. You owe it to yourself. It's a really, really, really phenomenal book. It's a life-changing book, I think. And tomorrow we'll look forward to hearing you, Molly, talk more about Esau. So now we'll continue with Aleinu on page 282. Please rise as you are able.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב יקרה בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכינו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשיבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Kaddish is on page 294. Please stand as you are able. This is written by Chana Senesh. There are stars up above, so far away we only see their light, long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we have loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us: Alma Balter, Ray Coffey, Joel Safir. We also remember those whose yahrzeits we observe in this week. On this Shabbat, Lenore R. Berger, Harry Leroy Bittner, Mildred Kaplan, Harold Cook, Jordan Drix, Edward Eitzel, Tessie Freiberg, Alethea George, David Gins, Marsha Goldberg, Hermine Green, Bernard J. Grinberg, Richard J. Grinberg, L. Grinberg, Irma Gurgen, Judith Half, Janet Jane, Melvin Cobry, Karen Katofsky, Seymour Kraus, David Labovitz, Nathan Lodsberg, Alan Lefkowitz, Edith Lesgold, Charles Littman, Harry Madoff, Burnett Marcus, Charles Markison, Barbara Rogal, Leonard Rahm, Harry Rosen, Andrew Rosenberg Jr., S.L. Russlander, Gail Rive, Rebecca Schwartz, Rosalind Sarens, Evelyn Singer, Metal Struhl, Peter Tima, Susan Workman, Erwin Yamran. Other names for Kaddish tonight? Is there anyone else? Zichronam livracha, may all their memories be for a blessing. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shamei rabbah.
Amen.
V'yalma divrach yirtei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'chayei d'chol v'et Yisrael. B'agala v'yizman kari v'imru. Amen.
Amen.
Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach v'olam olmei almaya. Yitzbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yinaseh. Yidadar v'yitala v'yitalal shmei d'kudashah b'rechu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechamata. Damiran b'yalma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. V'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. V'imru. Amen. You may be seated.
Shalom bimroma, uyaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru, amen.
In just a moment, we will have our closing song, Shalom Aleichem, which is on a page. It's on page 24 or 323. And then after Shalom Aleichem, we'll invite Molly Diaz back up to the Bima to lead us in Kiddush and Motzi. Tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, Molly becomes Bat Mitzvah, so Mazel Tov to you, Molly, and to your family. And I don't have any other announcements. Shalom, I'm sorry. Yes, Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimel מלאכי השרת, מלאכי עליון, ממלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש, הקדוש ברוך הוא. צאתכם לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון, ממלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. שלום עליכם, שלום עליכם, מלאכי השרת, מלאכי עליון, ממלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Molly will lead us in Kiddush, page 5.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu. V'shabbat kodsho be'ahava u'ratzon, hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit, ki hu yom techila lemikra kodesh, zecher litziat Mitzrayim. Kivanu v'acharta, v'yotanu kidasha, mikol amim, v'shabbat kodshecha, v'ahava u'ratzon,
Hinkatanu,
Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh ha-Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
We'll cut some of this, so if you can all come up and get some. And as you leave, please remember to take your prayer books. Shabbat Shalom.
Do we go sit down? You want me to go sit down?
Yeah, we're done. You don't have to sit.